Pretty soon I'll be getting on my first plane. I'll see the veins of my city like they do in space. But my head's filling up fast with the wicked games up in flames. How can I fuck with the fun again when I'm knowing? And my boys trip me up with their heads again, loving them. Everything's cool when we're all in line for the throne. But I know it's not forever. Baby, be the class clown. I'll be the beauty queen in tears. It's a new
Welcome to The Word for August 18th, 2013. I'm Jakob Musick. Today, we will discuss the unbelievable story of the so-called porn professor. A story mixing such perfect quantities of outrage, salaciousness, and poor decision-making could only happen in America. But first, some headlines. 93 years ago today, women in the United States gained the right to vote. The vote was enabled by the passage and ratification of the 19th Amendment by the Congress and the states. 2 days before the final passage of the amendment, the last state to ratify, Tennessee, faced efforts by some conservative lawmakers to stop passage. Today, more women vote in presidential elections than men in the United States. The passage of the 19th Amendment was the culmination of the early 20th century suffrage movement. The amendment was written 42 years before ratification. The amendment suffered much opposition, and its constitutionality was even tested in the Supreme Court. A Brazilian woman has sawed off her husband's penis with a bread knife after discovering him in bed with another man. The names of those involved has not been released. The man and his severed member were rushed to the hospital, but the penis could not be saved. It is apparent that the woman was planning on the attack for several days. This premeditated aspect will be vital when the case is litigated later this year. The attack happened a few days after the woman first discovered her husband's infidelity. The day of the attack, the woman convinced her husband to allow her to tie him up as part of what she presented as a sexual game. Unfortunately for the husband, this was all part of an elaborate ruse to ensure that he would not be able to escape, as she performed the castration by bread knife. The man's medical condition has been described as stable. In a recent performance, Toni Braxton suffered a rather severe wardrobe malfunction. While on stage, Ms. Braxton's sparse dress came undone, and suddenly her entire backside was exposed. She continued performing nonetheless. R&B singer Monica is expecting her third child. She announced that the girl's name is expected to be Leia. It is her first child with her current husband, Shannon Brown. Monica has two previous sons from her relationship with rapper Rocco, named Rocco Jr. and Romeo. Monica was signed to Arista Records at age 13, has released 7 albums, and sold 20 million albums worldwide. In Switzerland, so-called drive-through sex boxes have opened. They are garage-style structures in which the customers of prostitutes will drive through, with up to 40 working women stationed in these structures. The transaction will be done inside one of the stations, where posters are hung talking about safe sex and how AIDS is transmitted. The sex boxes are also equipped with alarms that prostitutes can activate if they feel they are in danger. The boxes are part of a Swiss effort to combat pimping. A California family got a lot more than they bargained for when their son fell and suffered what initially looked like a simple scrape. When Rachel Franklin's 4-year-old son Paul fell on a rock, she thought nothing of it. Kids fall and scrape themselves all the time. But Paul's wound seemed a lot more serious, and when she took him to an urgent care center, he was diagnosed with a staph infection. But when the family was home again, Rachel noticed that Paul's wound had turned black. Against medical orders, Rachel squeezed the wound, and a snail shot out of her son's leg. It is possible that the young boy fell on a rock that was holding the eggs of the snail, and that they were forced into the wound, where they incubated and hatched. The young boy named the newborn snail, who had gestated inside of him, Turbo. I'm Jakob Musick. Today I have two wonderful panelists. First I have Glitter from Morgan State University. She is a returning panelist. Thank you for being here today, Glitter.
You are quite welcome, Jacob.
And I have a first-timer today. Her name is Poppy M. And thank you very much for taking the leap and, coming on for the first time to the program. Thank you, Poppy.
Oh, thank you, Jacob. I'm looking forward to it.
So, we have a pretty strange topic today. Have either of you heard of the porn professor?
Well, only because you sent me the article.
Well, there's a lot here. So basically, I have an article from the College Fix, which is a website dealing with sort of university-related news. And so the article states that this professor, he's behind a controversial college class dedicated entirely to porn. And why he's even in the news is he went on Twitter, and he kind of went on a rampage on Friday, confessing to having sex with students in his class and to having sex with guest lecturers from the porn industry whom he had invited to speak to his class. In addition, he said he had planned to have sex with a porn star in the classroom in front of his students. The class is Navigating Pornography, and his name is Hugo Schwyzer of Pasadena City College. Schwyzer not only screened hardcore porn in the classroom, but also assigned porn films as homework for his students. In sort of explaining his class, he said students today live in a porn-saturated culture and very rarely get a chance to learn about it in a safe, non-judgmental, intellectually thoughtful way. I will ask each of you, do you agree with his statement?
Well, in my point of view, it's the fact that a college sanctioned the class is progressive. I like that. I think it's interesting. And the fact that, colleges have really just strange courses nowadays.
Yeah.
He wants to screw people in the classroom. I think that's a little odd. But my problem with him is the fact that he had sex with his students.
Yeah. And that's,
that's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Because, when you're a professor, you have to have that delineation between yourself and your students.
Absolutely.
You give appropriate grades, unless there are no grades in the class.
Yeah.
It did say that.
Yeah.
But, and the other thing is it's Pasadena City College.
Yes.
I've never heard of that. Is that like a joke college? Or is that actual real college?
It's a real college, but the only reason anybody outside of that area talks about it is Hugo Schwyzer.
Sure. No, I get that, but is it like one of those, buy a degree colleges? Or,
No, it's not.
It's online. It's a class, but...
Well, actually, I have no idea
it's
what...
It's not a reputable school, is it?
I have no idea what this school is all about, but I do know that he's been teaching there for 20 years. So let me go to you, Glitter. What is your assessment of what you heard so far? And number two, do you agree that, students, they need to get this sort of pornography literacy in a class in a non-judgmental, friendly kind of way?
Well, as we know, pornography, while I don't agree with pornography has been around for centuries.
Yes.
We know that it is, according to the dictionary, in our plain part. Not even centuries. That goes back to the pre-ancient.
Probably millennia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You have an audience who are interested in this, then they are offering a class for those who want to be a part of this.
Yes.
So without being judgmental, I say that learning about it without it being obscene,
yes,
compared to being prostituted or forced on someone,
yeah,
then they're in a learning environment and learning what it is,
yes,
the art of porn. And I personally would not take a class on porn, but I certainly would be open to hear where they're going with
Yes.
it.
And my opinion on this is, of course, I draw the line at the same point where Poppy does, and it's recognized in the world today as an abuse of your power if, as a professor, somebody who has control over the grades and the fate of your students, that you pursue sexual relations with them because there's a power imbalance. But in terms of just looking, not at the reason why he's in the news, but looking at his course, I do think, it's an important type of component of just learning about what media messages we receive. I think it's important to put it into context. We have classes about film, classes about TV that help people understand what it is that they're looking at. And I think so. I think there should be more pornography classes, or just teach them as part of a media class, So it shouldn't be
because
sort of...
we are living in a society where there is a generation of men and women, young and adults, who are living promiscuously, and not because some of them want to be that way, some of them want to be, some of them don't want to be, but for those who have questions, unanswered questions, this gives them a chance to learn what it is. And then if they make a decision, hey, this is weird to me, I don't want to be a part of this, then they can make a change in some other way. But for him to offer the class, I certainly say, I certainly don't pity it. I certainly support him having the class.
Yeah, I think
but
it was an
I don't support him having sexual relationship with his student.
Yes.
Is it consensual?
As far as we know, yes.
I wasn't arrested for anything, so...
No. The only reason we know about it is because not that a student came forward, because he actually admitted this.
He actually admitted it.
On Twitter.
On Twitter. Well, something, I mean, I'm sure it was consensual because he wasn't arrested, but, again, you're taking it, and I would take it.
Yeah.
Just the title, right? I think it would be fun. But, have sex with the professor, never.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they probably think of him as the fun professor, the one where they can let their hair down and learn at the same time, have an erection or whatever they
But I think he just took it a little bit too far. The boundaries completely dissolved,
Right, exactly.
And I think
he took it a notch higher. But you know something? There are worlds of worlds within this universe.
Yes. And
that is their world.
Yes.
And who am I to say you can't have that?
Yeah.
That's free will for them.
Yes.
And that's what free will is all about.
Yes.
Now, contaminating in an academic environment, they're offering this course for the students, and the students are signing up for it. So that lets you know there is a supply and demand, a need for it to be supplied, and a demand for it to be supplied.
Yes.
Well, they don't teach sexual education anywhere, do they? No. Primary schools. They took it out, as far as I know. Some of the schools, they've taken out sexual education, but they give away condoms in some of the schools. And
which is good.
There was a big controversy about that when it first came out.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the students are having sex.
Indeed.
At young ages.
Yes.
And they need to be educated on what's happening.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now, I think sexual education is a wonderful thing. I mean, it's important to learn because if nothing else, they can learn about disease and check sexually, transmitted things and
Yes.
potentially make the incidences. What is it? I think they said 1 in 5 has herpes, which is incurable.
Wow.
I mean, so, education is an important thing.
Yeah. And I think this class overall is an honorable effort, and I think that there should be more classes like this. And Glitter, in the vein of what you were saying, not only were these classes popular with students waiting to sign up, but it actually, every time the class was put on, it was so full that they had to, the students coming in had to be put on a wait list. So obviously there's a demand for this,
And some took it to be spectators.
Yes.
That is neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Unless that's what I mean by a stupid reason. They didn't take it for an educational reason. Yeah, and maybe they should take a consensus or survey on why the students decided to take this class, and that will enlighten us a little more. No, that's useless, because no one will answer it truthfully. I think very few will say, "Oh, we took it to further our education." In America, the puritanical values.
Yeah.
I mean, nude beaches don't really happen here, at least that I've ever found. It's very uptight here.
Yeah.
The high statistics of rape in the world, I read. Oh, it's terrible. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's a Puritan country. Everyone's so embarrassed about the bodies.
That's our legacy. But let me continue on in this article and read a next selection and get your thoughts on it. So one girl who had actually taken this course offered her thoughts on what she got from it. She said, "My view of pornography before taking this class was more the traditional view that it was not meant for me as a woman," said one student interviewed. "After or in the midst of taking this class, I've become much more accepting of it and understanding of it." I would ask both of you, do you think it is a positive force if it helps women to be able to appreciate or enjoy pornography? Poppy, let's go to you first.
In that case, it sounds to me like he really did give, more than your just average, here's some quick porn. It sounds like he did research it and show a lot of different views.
Yeah.
Because, it's a billion-dollar worldwide industry. Anything you want, you can find.
Indeed.
From I like feet to I like silly hats. And, there's, what do they call furries, they call it, where people like animal costumes. No, it's a real thing.
I know.
And in the UK, squashing. The UK squashing, which is like putting food all over yourself.
Squashing, did you say?
Cake and things like that.
Squashing?
That's large in the UK. It's called squashing.
Oh, boy. Interesting.
So there's a niche for every kind of fetish you can imagine.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this girl was educated. It sounds like the professor did do the class in a serious manner for that. And it sounds like describing it that way. That he introduced them to all sorts, not just like, hey, let's watch some films and get off.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I would go into it with an open mind, and then after I learn the curriculum, then I can form an opinion
Indeed.
based on the class itself. I don't know what the class, all of the curriculum entails, but just to hear a student say that at first she was a little apprehensive, but after she took the class and was educated, then it opened her more to a more positive side of what he was teaching in the field of pornography, because that is an industry. And a lot of people do not recognize it as an industry, but it is a billion-dollar industry.
Worth noting, this is the tone of this article is negative towards the class and him and his actions, obviously, but the class as well. But it's interesting, the one quote from a student that they did include was a positive review of the class. And if you can make somebody who doesn't even like the subject feel comfortable, especially on a subject that makes so many people uncomfortable, like pornography, then that's pretty hard.
Class. So not only was she comfortable, but she was obviously comfortable around members of the opposite sex.
Yeah, and it's interesting that could happen, But
interesting topic.
Yeah, the article goes on to say, where this really became problematic and the reason why he's getting so much attention is, Friday, so it was almost a week ago today. Professor Schwyzer fired off a rampage of 130 posts on his Twitter account, confessing to having sex with students under his tutelage and to having sex with porn stars he had invited to speak to his class. He had planned to have sex with the porn star James Dean in front of his class during the porn star's visit. He said, "Yes, I wanted to have my students watch me screw James Dean," Schwyzer tweeted on Friday. Beyond that, when I accessed Hugo Schweizer's Twitter account, all 130 tweets of this rant were still up, and I also got some of the selects here that I will read to you guys, just to hear how explicit this rant really got in terms of his confessional-like statements. Keep in mind, he is not only a PhD, but he's a college professor in a very controversial topic. So these are some of his Twitter statements. "I'm high as a fucking light. I'm sure I'll regret this in the morning. The drugs haven't hit yet. I pumped in an extra 10 milligram of Klonopin, so I should be done soon. Being micro-infamous sucks. I did try to kill my ex. So yes, I sexted with a hooker. I wanted to have my students watch me screw James Dean. I fucked porn stars I met through my class. I'm bipolar as fuck, and I sometimes fucked my way into a gig." Does this sound like a man who is going through some sort of breakdown to you? Or rather, let me just ask you open-ended. What does this sound like to you?
Well, he says he's high, right? He said he took Klonopin, which is like Xanax for anxiety, but he didn't say what he was high on. So
yeah,
it sounds like he's someone having a bit of a mental breakdown. Yes, I agree with Poppy, what she's saying. It does sound like he's having a bit of a mental breakdown. A lot of it can be due to the pressure that he's under, and he's releasing what's inside of him. Now, what he's saying, are they signs of violence? What's the next level? That's what concerns me. What is the next level that he's going to take this to, where it can spin out of control? And is he in some type of a counseling program where he can talk about it? I don't think that Twitter was a way for him to release that information. So he can't hurt anybody because he's locked up.
Yeah, he is in a mental hospital right now.
He is in a mental hospital getting some type of professional help, and that's good. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So he's not going to hurt anybody.
It is interesting to note, and I think there, again, we cannot verify if the things that he has said on this Twitter rant were accurate. We don't know. But there's certainly very lurid details that he describes in his own life, such as, there are some things that not everybody would object to, such as his, private sexual behavior with people who aren't his students, or that he has bipolar disorder. But he did also state potentially dangerous things, such that he tried to kill his ex, he said. And that would demonstrate somebody who could be dangerous,
Right. Well, that's why it's an X, right? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
God knows there are quite a plenty of people that want to kill their exes for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
But, regardless, it sounds like, he's losing his job, he's having a bit of a breakdown for whatever reasons, and he's in the right place. I doubt he'll ever teach again,
Yes.
And not necessarily just because of the class, but because, the fact that he said he's had sex with students, that, he'll never get a job teaching again.
Yes. Yeah, that will probably disqualify him from the academy. But this article goes on to say that he also tweeted that he did have sexual intercourse with the porn stars that he met through having them come as speakers to his class.
Well, that's all right. More power to him.
He also
learned something?
And he did also announce that he has canceled his class for the fall, and and he plans to take a leave of absence and enter psychological rehab, which we know he's in the psych ward now. He also did mention...
The leave of absence was mandatory, I guarantee.
Well, that's a matter of perspective, right?
Right.
He also did say that he did have sex in order to gain promotion and get to his position where he was at the college. So so that leads to questions of, obviously he did become a very influential person, despite the fact that he kind of flamed out publicly.
He brought money to the school. If he's got a class that's got a waiting list, that means that he's bringing money to the school.
He is,
so
yes.
Anyone like that is going to, is going to be wanted by that school.
Correct.
Now, this is a different story.
Correct.
But, the fact is that it's all money-based in education. It's a rather large business, especially here in the States. I mean, people come internationally from the world to come to college here.
Yes.
So, again, I don't know if they're going to city college or state colleges or private colleges, but they're all coming here.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And what is the message that he's sending about pornography? Because I'm not really grasping any fruitfulness from it, other than he's offered a course for the students to take who have an interest in it. But how much further can you take this for it to be effective in society and to make a difference, other than just having sex? So I'm not really grasping a foundation that is centered around what he's doing, other than he's offered it, and he's canceled it for the fall, and because he's in a psych ward.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to hear how this unfolds.
Yes.
And
yes.
where the students who did take the class are in 5 to 10 years from now, and what did they gain, and how did they apply it to their everyday lives or their professional lives.
And it will also be interesting because I'm thinking now that he has been thrown so much into the spotlight this past week, I think we may see students come out and either in criticizing him or in support of him, and that will be pivotal as well.
Right, very pivotal.
But a lot of your college education has nothing to do with your degree. I mean, you can go to school for art and or even better, mathematics. But yet, to graduate, you have to take certain courses in art and physical fitness, and that has absolutely nothing to do with your professional life and mathematics.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what they require.
So a lot of people may have been taking...
I had to take a health course, and pornography, let's say, was offered as a health course over, jogging. Well, I'd be in a porn class rather than running. No question.
So Schwyzer did speak out to defend himself, and one of the things that he did say is, in that Twitter rant he mentioned that he does suffer from bipolar disorder. So in his defense to explain this Twitter rant, he said that he was in a manic state. So if we do take, if we accept that he was in a manic state, can we believe that everything that he tweeted was actually jiving with reality?
Well, you're in a manic state. Manic just means you're going a little crazy. It doesn't mean, it means you're high on life, and high on, like, some manics will go on shopping sprees, some will just go on cleaning sprees. All manic is that you really, you don't have that self-control. And maybe that's why he tweeted what you said, 150 tweets or something.
130, yeah.
Right, so there's your manic,
Yeah, but so you don't think he would be more prone to lie in this state?
No, well, mania and lying what go hand in hand, unless lying is something you normally do.
Okay.
And it sounds like it kind of spiraled out of control for him.
Indeed.
And with bipolar, I took a psych class, and I know with bipolar people, one of the symptoms of bipolar is sexual promiscuity.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it can be. Wait, let me stop you there. I'm bipolar and have been my whole life. And
If they're not on their medication.
it doesn't matter. For me, when I'm in a manic state, when I'm on my medication or not, I spend money. Especially spend money.
And like you said, it affects some people different when they're in a manic state.
I'm saying it doesn't always, make you promiscuous. I'm no more promiscuous when I'm...
No, not all of them, but one of the symptoms for some of them are sexual promiscuity.
And I've heard that corroborated from other people that I know as well.
You already are. You have to be somewhat promiscuous in the first place.
Well, no, I don't...
Well, that's part of the illness of bipolar. So I'm not attacking you per se.
No. I'm not thinking you're attacking me. I get that. I'm just saying, if you have by nature that you're more open and you are a more sexual person, when you're in a manic state, it just amplifies that part of your personality.
To have sex with James Dean in front of the class. We know that James Dean is deceased. He's not here. And if he was here...
No. James Dean is a pornography star.
Yeah,
it's
D.
Dean that was an actor.
It's like a parody name. D-E-E-N.
Okay, so that's the pornography star, James
He is.
Dean. Okay, not the actor, James Dean.
Yes.
He wanted to have him in the classroom and have sex with him.
James Dean is the star of the films MILF Bonanza, Vault of Horrors, Smokin' Crack 2, and Frat House Fuckfest. Continue.
Right, so not that he wanted sex with a deceased person.
No.
But you know what, James Dean...
Two different James Deans.
Yeah, different James Dean, but this James Dean is only in straight pornography, so I don't even... That's what got me kind of confused with this. I don't even... That's where I said maybe there is not a... Maybe not all the layers of reality are here. Because James Dean...
Exactly, it's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy.
But he may just be in straight porn, but if you look statistically, most of the male stars in pornography... straight pornography are homosexual.
What?
Male. Oh yeah, if you look statistically, most male porn stars
Really?
are homosexual. Yes.
How does that happen?
And there are these things called fluffers on the side of the set that get them ready, and then they just shoot.
Wait, so...
If you look at different statistics, let's see. Where's one of them? I mean, on average, it said, this is from something called iVillage in the UK, surprising sex stat.
Oh, okay.
On average, sex lasts between 3 and 13 minutes.
Okay.
Never watch pornography. That stuff goes on at least a half hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Reality. So it doesn't matter if you're straight or not. They're obviously not performing. They're performers.
That's what they are, as performers.
That's
Yeah.
what they are.
So I guess I don't know.
So they have these fluffers, off camera that get them ready, and then they go off and
Well, Poppy, I would ask
do
you,
the scene.
can you pinpoint why that would be the case, that there would be more homosexual performers as in straight pornography?
Yeah.
I just think that I think men are a little less comfortable with the sexuality. I know that, and I know the fact that more homosexuals get into pornography because homosexual men-on-men pornography is the highest paid. And if they're already comfortable in front of the camera, it's not that hard to switch to the other gender.
Okay. So it's more
I
out
know
of...
men get paid a lot more money than women. I think that 5 times as much.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. There's, what was the name of the show? HBO used to have it. And, oh God, I can't remember the name. But it was about not just pornography, but all kinds of different just sex in general.
Real sex. That's what it was called.
Yes, that's the one. And they have, all kinds of different, you can learn a lot from that show.
Yeah.
And then there was another pornography star named Katie Sprinkle, and she did a bunch of shows on HBO, just informative shows.
Yeah.
Her in front of a camera talking about things.
So let me redirect this conversation back to his bipolar disorder. I would ask both of you, do you think the media and the public are fully appreciative of the impact of what bipolar disorder can do? Are they seeing people like Hugo Schwyzer as just insulting and offensive, or are they understanding that there is mental illness going on?
Oh, I just think that they think he's ill, but they don't understand the nature of the illness. I think most people hear of bipolar disorder and they think of the depressed, moody person.
Yeah.
They don't realize the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that they don't understand fully the illness of bipolar, and I don't think that they're being judgmental. I think that they really recognize that she needs some help.
Yeah.
I think more people are bipolar than people realize. I think it's still a bit in the closet.
Yeah.
And that's true, yeah.
Yeah. So this editorial, the author of this takes a strong position when he says that there never was 2 cents of academic worth to this class. It seems to have been designed primarily for a mentally troubled professor to meet and have sex with porn stars he admired. Glitter, does a class on pornography have academic merit, or do you agree with this author?
No, I don't think it has academic merit at all.
Okay.
His particular pornography class.
Yes.
So there are so many other classes.
One at a time.
Well, not in an academic environment, but there are pornography classes, workshops all around the world. They have a convention, pornography convention.
Yeah.
They have pornography conferences. There are pornography writings. There is pornography art. There is pornography media. So there is an industry in the pornography world, and to them it has academic merit. But in society as a whole, how is this helping and furthering the education of people who have taken this class? That's why I said earlier, it will be interesting to find out, like 5 years, 10 years from now in the future, how this is affecting the students in their life, or in their everyday life, or their professional life.
Yes, and Poppy?
Right, but Glitter, you said that it has no academic merit, but there's no way of really saying that because it's not a common class. I mean, it's the only class I've ever heard of that does that.
And we only know about this particular one because it's problematic.
To it if it's not something that's
no. I said I don't think so. I said I don't know if there is academic merit, because that's why it would be interesting 5 to 10 years from now to see where the students are going to take this. The pornography industry, though, is an isolated industry, and because of a lot of issues that are on the table about pornography, I would say that most people shun it.
Yes. Yeah. But I think at the same time also, I mean, statistically, many people also use it who shun it publicly, you know?
Who shun it publicly, they do use it, and but it's neither here nor there. We cannot judge them because they're not in the public per se with it, and the ones who are in the public, you still can't judge them either. But how is this working together for a means and cause for the future? So that's why, for me, I would say no. It doesn't have any academic merit, but I would like to know from the students who have taken the class, how is is going to work for you in the professional industry if you go outside of pornography.
And I don't believe that most students in this class were planning on going into the industry, because you don't even need to go to college for becoming a pornography performer.
Exactly. But what I was saying, though, is a lot of college classes have no bearing on your industry. So, saying, well, how does it affect your industry? That kind of is a moot point. Saying that this porn course has no bearing on the person's career, so who really cares? Well, no, it's not that. There are lots.
It doesn't, because you're talking about a physical act of intimacy.
Well, it's more than that. It's not
Math is not a physical act of intimacy. Although you can't. Math can apply in pornography because you have different angles and different positions.
What I'm saying, you said that. What you said was that this course would have, no bearing on whoever's professional career later.
Right, because if they're going to a Fortune 500 company, where is pornography going to play a part in the boardroom?
And I think that I think the focus of this course is more so navigating pornography in terms of living in a society where it is consumed. So how to understand it, aspects of the industry, how it's produced, the experience of people in the industry, what it says about our culture, what it says about gender relations, race relations. That's really, I think it's deconstructing it in that kind of analytical way.
And if this was to surface out into the mainstream media, it could very well spin out of control, because for some people it would give them a pass to take pornography to a very vulgar level too. Also, pornography. I wouldn't look what's vulgar. What's vulgar?
Yeah, well,
people having affairs, and look how common that is.
It is.
Please.
It is.
Pornography is nothing. I'd much rather my partner watch pornography than go behind my back and do something. Now, I personally never have to worry about that, because we're lifestyle and there is no behind each other's backs. We don't tell most people that, because people are very judgmental here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one to tell you, but you're supposed to be committed to one another, only monotonous to that person, but monotonous. Meaning monotonous at all. We have lots of we're not on a monotonous level. Are you talking monotony? I'm sorry, monotony. Okay, you're only with that. Wait, no. It's not that. We are what's called lifestyle, or I guess swingers is another term.
It's what we call it, in the 70s it was swinging. That's what it was called.
Right. Okay, so you're committed to that. You're committed to that person, but you also allow someone else to come in with you all. Right. We have sex with other people. It's above board. We have boundaries and levels, and we know exactly what's going on. There's no lying. There's no sneaking around. That is a form of pornography.
What?
That is obscene art. No.
Poppy.
I have seen in documentaries swinger parties and swinger documentaries on the reality show Real Sex, and that is very visual. Pornography is videos, for example, or different.
Let me ask you this, Poppy. Just to clarify, you're not filming these activities, right?
No.
So it would not be pornography.
Let me tell you something. Someone is filming a club. If you ever go to a club, there are no cameras allowed. No. We are technology age now, and people are filming. It doesn't have to be a production team in there, but you can rest assured there is someone filming. And let me tell you something. Nothing
nothing now is a secret. Okay? Nothing now is a secret. Whatever you do in the dark must come to light, and someone will know, someone will find out, and that is a form of pornography. And there are different forms of swingers. Swinging is a form of pornography.
No, swinging is as simple. It's so many things. It's as simple as me and my...
And if you look at pornography...
Don't interrupt me. Swinging, it can be as simple as me and my partner and another couple in my bedroom doing what we choose to do. It is not pornography.
It is. Hey, it is pornography. Because I saw, let me tell you something, but there was a documentary on cable about this couple, and what happened is they were in a swinging club, and they became attached to the other swingers. And what happened, it spun out of control because their emotions spun out of control. And they would also shoot filmage of it, and they end up getting a divorce behind it. They married the other ones, but they were still swinging, and it was just a mess. And a lot of people, wait a minute, let me finish. A lot of people were hurt behind it. So I'm saying to you, it is a form of pornography, because even in pornography films, there is more than one partner usually. It's not always just two partners.
Pornography has nothing to do with a partner. Pornography can be a picture of my breast. The definition of pornography,
if it can be a picture of your breast so simple, the act of having sex with more than one partner can be pornography also.
The definition of pornography, the physical definition of the word. I read it before, I'll read it again. Okay? The definition of the word pornography, it is a noun. It is printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity. That's all pornography is.
It is pornography is prostitute, and the word. You are completely wrong. No, I'm not wrong. I am not.
Directly from Merriam-Webster's dictionary.
No, let me tell you something. I've read the dictionary up and down, and I know what pornography means.
Right this second, I read you from Merriam-Webster.
I am not wrong. And see, that's where you're wrong, because you cannot judge and call me wrong when you think just because you think you are right doesn't make it right.
Yes, it does. I'm not right, Mary.
I did not say no. Just because you think it's right does not make it right. And what I am saying to you, you don't know. And they want to separate themselves from everybody else and say, oh, no, I don't do that. But the truth of the matter is, swinging is a form of pornography.
No, the truth of the matter is,
and I'm done. I said what I had to say.
Fine, say what you have to say. Now it's my turn. The truth of the matter is not what you think or what I think or anything.
It's not what I think. If you look it up in the dictionary, it is. Pornography is obscene art. It is writings, yes, that too. But I said what I had to say, and I'm not going to say any more on that.
Don't, and please listen. I am reading it from Merriam.
You cannot say it. I will not take you saying that I am wrong and you are right. No.
I'm not saying anybody is wrong or right. What I'm saying is the depiction of behavior in pictures or writing intended to cause sexual excitement. Number two, material as books or a photograph.
To cause sexual excitement.
Let me
cause sexual excitement.
It is a
swinging is a form of pornography.
No, it is a depiction. Anything can be a depiction. Now
it is a form of pornography.
Oh my God, you have no clue. You have absolutely no clue. You know something? I am a very open-minded, well-seasoned person, and I know that pornography... You know better than Merriam-Webster. I know that, it's just the word pornography that offends you, and you don't want to... It offends you. I'm not offended in the slightest. I'm offended by you.
Well, I think that it is safe...
Go ahead, Jacob.
I think it is safe to say that both of you have different conceptions of what the word pornography means. Let's move on to the next chapter in this Hugo Schwyzer story, which just came out recently. This is just in. He has attempted suicide for the second time recently, and he is being hospitalized now. And it was revealed also that not only does Schwyzer suffer from bipolar, but he's also borderline personality disorder. Obviously, as we had just been conversing about, Navigating Pornography generated substantial controversy for featuring guest lectures from porn stars, including James Dean. Since attempting suicide earlier this month, Schwyzer has periodically returned to Twitter to shed light on his condition and motivations. He said that he was unqualified to teach about pornography and feminism and manipulated his way into a position of authority on these issues. He has repeatedly asked his relatives to shut him out of social media, but has consistently found his way back to Twitter. And that's how we kind of end in the tragic story that we're in. But, and Glitter, you did mention, talking about how if this story would drift towards the mainstream media, it's interesting. I have, as a watcher of the news media, I have seen this story take birth as a kind of sensational tabloid type story in very right-wing blogs. Then it kind of moved up to larger websites and moved up to larger websites, went to the Daily Caller. Now it's at Fox Nation. And, it's interesting because, articles at Fox Nation, the only reason Fox Nation is really known is because of the incendiary comments that people make on the article. But I did take a look at the comments on the Fox Nation reporting of this event. And it's interesting. One comment that somebody left really struck me. This person said, "Why do you need to pay for a class to navigate pornography when it is virtually everywhere?" My argument would be that because it is virtually everywhere, that is exactly why you need a course on how to navigate it. What is your take? Poppy, you can go first.
I tend to agree with that. I think what understanding needs, it needs to be people that open their minds and realize that, if you look at, for example, just cheating statistics.
Yes.
Affairs are rampant. 70% of men have cheated, and they say 50 to 60% of women. Correction, 99% of men have cheated. Where are you getting that statistic from? I'd love to know your sources on that. I got it from a pimp. But you also, when you add a percentage from the streets, then it's about 99%. I'm sure 99% is rather high. But regardless, I don't take that, I think that might be a good thing if it can bring interest, to people. If it can bring people talking about their relationships and what makes them happy and doesn't, so they don't have to go lying and sneaking around behind their partner's back.
So another...
Right? Well, I was just going to add to what she was saying is that if more couples communicate, we wouldn't have this problem of infidelity.
Absolutely. Well, it's a multiple-pronged issue, but I agree with you.
And virtually it is everywhere. It can be useful in a positive way.
So, and here's another comment that was left on the Fox Nation article or take of this story. And this is kind of in the vein of Glitter, what you talked about before, the same kind of critique, like job-based. This person said, "Seems like colleges are where all the trash ends up. Does make you wonder what kind of job this class was supposed to prepare you for." And I think, in America, colleges and universities are not necessarily trade schools. So you will take classes in things that you don't necessarily end up in. And I think that's part of where the visceral reaction to this being taught as a class, a lot of people are thinking this is a class to teach people how to become members of the porn industry. And I don't know if that characterization is exactly true,
Yeah, that's the fallacy of education, is that
College.
it can make you a well-rounded person.
But also, and understanding your society, but also one of the good points of American higher education is that, you have a choice. You have to do these certain requirements, but a lot of times you can choose, and a lot of students chose that they wanted to learn about this topic.
Right, but again, we don't know why. It could be the EVA, it could be because they are actually
Sure, but
interested.
irregardless.
Well, to be honest, it could be fun. It's like I told you, I think it would, when I was in college, I absolutely would have taken this course. I think it sounds like fun.
Yes.
Sounds like the professor's a bit off his head, but
Yeah, there's some
it
problems.
sounded like it would be a fun class to take. I would laugh. I would enjoy it.
Yes.
Again, in college, the people generally are not in their serious relationships yet. It's a way to maybe meet people.
Yes.
It sounded like a fun class.
And so, other comments on the Fox Nation included one that blamed liberals for the situation even happening, and also one person who rather dramatically stated, "We are witnessing the death of a nation." So, this brings up many questions for discussion. So, if you do teach controversial topics in a college seminar, you're going to get some people who are offended by them. I would start with Glitter asking you this question, should topics that will be considered controversial or offensive be the subject of college courses?
I would say yes. Controversial, that is refreshing to some. If it's going against the grain, that's different. But controversial, there's nothing wrong with having controversy.
Okay.
Okay? So I would say yes.
Okay. And Poppy?
I absolutely agree. And that's the whole point of education, is to educate.
Yeah.
To teach you, to explore boundaries. And if you don't ever open yourself up to controversy, then you never learn anything. You can never change anything.
Yes. So my next question is, I am a firm believer that there are more media literacy programs that are needed to contextualize the media that we all grow up with in the modern globalized society. I think that children should be taught from a young age that what you see in the media, sometimes even in the news media, is not reality, and give them tools that they can, analyze these messages, understand who's saying them and why they're saying them, so they won't be manipulated. And I would argue that education about pornography, in progressive steps, but I think it should be part of the media literacy package. Now, I'll go to you first, Poppy. Should education on pornography be included as part of the greater media literacy programs? Which ages should be educated, and how should it be talked about?
Mid to late high school.
Okay.
Just because it is a serious topic, and it is something that, needs to be age appropriate and maturity appropriate.
Yes.
Sex education is different from, pornography education. I think that sex education needs to happen very young.
Yes. Okay.
Unfortunately, because of the fact that, children are having children, and, there are diseases that are out there, and predators and all that.
Yeah.
But as far as, learning, I remember I heard about one, my parents were talking about one that they had heard of, 35 years ago, called Indiana Jones. And I remember my father brought up I don't remember how, I just remember my mother was like, "Oh, the girl Indiana Jones, how cute is that?" And, and I said, "Oh, I want to watch that." And my father said, "No, that's a grown-up movie." And I don't remember how. I think they're loud, and I heard it outside the room door.
Oh, my
but
God.
it was an adult title,
Yes.
making fun of the Indiana Jones movie.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I would say that I grew up with sexual education in school, in elementary. And it was very useful, and it was very scary in a way. And I also grew up learning that abstinence was best. Pornography, being in junior high school, elementary, junior high, or high school, I don't think it would be a good idea.
Okay.
If they're going to have it, I would say keep it in the college academic arena.
Okay, but it's statistically from studies we do know that, many numbers of high school students by the time they graduate will be exposed to pornography. So, and especially so in this day and age. So I feel like it would be important for, either media classes or human sexuality classes to help them contextualize what exactly is pornography and what's its relation to reality.
Well, that's just a question that's being posed, but that's not really going into everything that pornography is about. I don't see nothing wrong with the question being brought up and the question being answered, but certainly to show the graphics of pornography
I'm not
for
suggesting
high school students.
No.
There are so many other. Again, how will this work in their academic future professionally for them? If American culture is not ready for it, there is a dialogue about it. We're talking about it. Other people are talking about it. I would say no, not to have it in high school.
So here's another question for you guys. In the Fox Nation article, it was commented that one reader of the article gave his feedback that he thought that, this Hugo Schwyzer story showed the weakness or moral bankruptcy of American liberals. Would you concur with that? I'm going to go to you first, Poppy.
The weakness of American liberals. I don't I would go there. I think that, your political leanings really have nothing to do with, what's in your bed chamber. I think it's all really, what you do, what you like to do. And, you never know what's behind someone's bedroom. You never
Yes.
do. You never know what they've done or what they won't do.
Yeah.
And, I think the more you educate someone on, it's not a matter of judging them. It's just a matter of showing, what's out there. Because, in a sense, your sex, what you do should have absolutely no bearing on your life.
Yes.
Why do people need to announce, hey, I'm here on Friday? Who cares? Who cares if you it doesn't matter. The only reason it should affect things is if it affects things. Like reason why we shouldn't need gay rights parades. So the reason why should have the same rights. But realistically, we don't live in a society like that. So the gays who were in the closet and the ones who took the risk of coming out and living their lives the way they are, they were ostracized. Some were killed. A lot of them committed suicide.
Yeah.
So many, and it has happened to heterosexuals also too. Now, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is they were fighting for their rights. What I'm saying is, I think if more people were more open about the reality of sexuality and what's really out there, and didn't have the shame factor that's associated with it all, that we wouldn't have, these issues.
Well, I think
these issues come up because people are so afraid of what other people are going to think and how other people are going to judge them.
And society is invested in keeping up this idea of normalcy when it comes to sexuality, especially.
Right. And obscenities and, the same, what is the norm? Mm-hmm.
Glitter, I would ask you... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you another very loaded question here. Do you believe that pornography is indicative of social decay, as one of the commenters wrote? presence or the popularity of pornography indicate our society is in decline?
I don't think, no, I don't.
One person at a time.
Wait a minute now, Poppy, I want to get this out. I have it on the tip of my tongue. No, I don't think that it's an indication that society is ending. I think that what it's doing is raising a consciousness to the people who are crying out and saying that this is an agenda that needs to be dealt with, and how do we constructively make it available to the ones who are interested in it, and go forth in forming educators in the industry so that it can be presented in a way that's not offensive.
Okay.
Because pornography has gotten a bad rap. With trafficking, with prostitution, with films, and that's just some of the forms of pornography. But there are other artful forms of pornography. I mean, even when they have the male dancers, that's a form of pornography. And it's educating people, and it's letting you know that, hey, this is who we were created to be here on this earth. But there are some who are tainting the industry and using it for their personal benefit to obtain a sexual arousal for it only.
I would say that's probably the purpose of pornography.
Mm-hmm. But you would say that that's the purpose of pornography?
Indeed, yeah.
I've heard so many different views on pornography, and one of the views, I don't think that the name pornography sounds bad in itself, but I don't think that...
Well, it doesn't sound bad to me.
That is the purpose of pornography.
People can just watch pornography for entertainment or, because it relaxes them. I don't know. But I think that, it's pretty... In my opinion, it's pretty much, clear that the main reason for pornography in our society is to produce sexual arousal.
Because it was taken out of context and turned into pornography. I don't know the other word for it, but there is
erotica.
That anyone would say is pornographic. No, the Michelangelo statue. I don't know if anyone would consider that pornographic.
I mean, potentially in some light.
There are a lot of people who do consider that pornographic, though, Poppy.
More conservative people.
There are.
More conservative people would. But I think what's interesting we have to introduce into the conversation, what we're really discussing about, is what is the distinction between erotica and pornography? Well, in my definition, the way that I have heard it be used in the English language, in my experience, is that erotica is the more art-centric, sexually tinged works, whether they be film or any medium. But pornography, in the way that I have encountered it, is more so not from being produced for an artistic perspective, but being produced to incite arousal.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. It does.
So, Poppy, I would ask you the same question. Is pornography, its popularity, its appearance, is that indicative of social decay?
Oh, not at all. Look, I mean, they have that stuff in cave paintings.
Yeah.
Unless we've been decaying to be established as humanity, then no.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. What does it say about our society, if anything, that pornography is so popular?
Well, I think it was as popular then as it is now. It's just much more accessible to it.
Okay.
Much more accessible. If you think about it, even 500 years ago, it was so difficult to get a book.
Yes.
Now, they're everywhere. You don't even need to print one. You can just look at it digitally.
Correct.
I mean, I can now get information from a world away at the touch of a button, whereas before, I mean, you had to put in a post, which went in a bag, which went in a boat.
Yes.
If you could even get it there, and then the translator.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of accessibility now.
look at things and learn more about what I see that I like.
Yes.
And, it's so easy to learn now.
Yeah.
You have to live in a bubble not to, get ideas about the people and things around you.
Yeah.
And there are those who do. There are those who don't want to see or learn anything about anything that doesn't pertain to them specifically.
Okay.
I'm obviously not like that.
And Glitter, I would ask you the same question. What does it say about our society? And you can take that to mean American or just the world in general today, that pornography is so popular. What does it say about us?
It says that the society is very horny. It's very sexual, but it's hidden. It's hidden.
Yes.
And it needs to release itself. It's just like a pressure cooker. It's a pot, when the pressure, it boils over. So now it's boiling over into the mainstream little bit by bit.
Yeah.
And it needs to be addressed. As a society, I think that it can only heighten our perspective on what's real out here, and it needs to be addressed, and it can only help to open up people's minds, because that is a world that exists, and they are crying out and saying that there are people who are interested in this industry. How do we provide the tools and give them the utensils and the education to help them along the way that are dealing with issues and don't know where to turn to? So it's happening little by little. So I think that it's good that we are talking about this, and it will be put out into the universe for everyone to hear, and hopefully someone will benefit from this and do some research for themselves, and use it to the good of society, and bringing in or helping someone who is struggling in that area.
Indeed. And this is a question that is related to when I responded to something you said earlier in talking about how it has moved through towards the mainstream media. And the scandal is getting more attention. However, when I saw it sort of go from just a small blog story to something much larger, and, in looking at the media outlets in which this story appears, it is in very conservative media outlets. Why do you think more right-wing outlets, Glitter, would cover this story as opposed to outlets of other perspectives? Why do you think it's provoking most outrage from the right?
I think it's provoking outrage. A lot of times when outrage happens, it's because they are shamed at that point. But it's the reality of it is happening.
Yeah.
The reality of it is it needs to be addressed. The reality of it is there are workshops, there's an industry, and the reality of it is that if you can have education for everything else, why can you not educate for this?
Yeah.
Because people are doing it.
Yeah. Poppy, why do you think the right wing is sort of taking this on as a cause célèbre? Why are they the ones focusing on this?
Fox is talking about it, then I might go to Fox's site to read it, and the more I go to their site, the more advertising they can get.
So it's really the fact that it's a sensational.
I really, they're conservative, because that's the word, conservative.
Yeah.
They are a little, and this story is very liberal.
Yeah.
This professor is very liberal.
Yes.
And the fact that he has had the breakdown, they can just, the conservatives can say, this is what happens when you're a liberal.
Yeah.
You're a liberal, so you have a breakdown. See, we were right. So they decided to use it again.
I agree with you.
Elsewhere you can find other colleges that have other fringe classes.
So really the thing
this
is...
particular class blew up,
So the
or the
point-
professor blew up.
So-
In different parts of Maryland, there are different classes
Yeah.
that, will be known to the locals, but not to the, let's call it, outside world.
Yeah.
It all depends on your frame of reference.
Correct. Yeah. I agree with what you're saying. And finally...
I'm sure that there are classes in, Utah about
Book of Mormon.
Polygamy and Mormonism that are
Yeah.
very specific.
Yes.
And might even be, let's say, pro-polygamy that are there locally
Yeah. Yeah.
that we don't know about. And if something happens there, then we'll all know about. We'll all know why.
I agree. Let me get to one last question on this issue before we go to break. I'm going to start with Poppy on this one. Why is pornography still such a divisive issue in America today?
Again, I think it's the Puritan ideal.
You think
I
so?
really think it's because it's so underground.
Yeah.
The more, it's just like drugs. The more illegal you make a drug, the more people want to do it. Marijuana and hashish in Amsterdam, nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. There's no issue with it. It hasn't led to greater drugs. It hasn't led to greater crimes. Whereas here, it's the big taboo subject.
Yeah.
So you have that issue. I think it's just that.
And Glitter, I would ask you the same thing. Why is pornography still a subject that can outrage and divide so many people today?
In the past, pornography was always linked to drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
And because it's linked to that, then it doesn't have any concrete usefulness for society. And when people take drugs and alcohol, usually they go into pornography, and it outrages people because they have loved ones that are involved in it. They have friends that may be involved in it, and it's out of the closet of what they're doing. That's something that should be held sacred in the bedroom.
Okay. And
I think that might be a link with prostitution, where they, get money for that, but not pornography.
anybody have any final comments?
I think it's just too bad that he blew up. I think it would have been a great thing, and could have spread to other learning institutions. But
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I would just say to get well soon.
Yeah.
Get well soon. Take care of yourself. Get well soon.
Yes. I think we can all agree on that. He's obviously, both suffered harm because of the situation, but also it appears like he's inflicted some harm as well. And, we don't judge him, and I hope that I'm actually planning on seeing if I can secure an interview with Professor Schwyzer towards the end of the year. And if he would be willing to come give his side of the story, I think it would be fascinating if he could speak in his own words about what he was trying to bring to his class in this course, I think that's
you should
important.
see if James Dean will talk to you as well. See if he would have been willing to do the acting class.
We should probably get comments. Well, okay, so, Poppy, I understand that you have brought some interesting statistics about cheating and swinging with you, correct? We're going to come to those after we break, okay?
All right.
This might be the most,
What are you giggling about?
Of course I didn't do this on purpose. And we're back. So, first-timer Poppy M, you brought some interesting statistics, really about, cheating, swinging, a host of very important relationship topics that relate to really the state of relationships, as they are in America today.
Well, I'm divorced. I am now with a significant other that I've been with for years, and we are in a non-monogamous, relationship.
Yeah.
Do not do anything separate. Everything is very above board.
Yes.
And part of that is because in my previous marriage, there was cheating involved, and the lying just ruined my marriage and, his previous marriages.
Yes.
There's something like 8 women to every man.
Okay.
To every one man. And that's a high number.
And so, Poppy, you did some research into these subjects. What did you find?
Well, it's funny. I found that some very interesting things. I found some people think that affairs can fix a marriage, and it actually can, in some circumstances, be true. That after, if the partner forgives the person who cheated, then it can rekindle their marriage. Now, this one I actually found from Woman's Day magazine.
Woman's Day, okay.
I know, and their statistics are gathered strictly from surveys.
Mm-hmm.
Strictly from surveys, okay? And so it's people that write in, most, I'm sure are women that do write in, but, and there was a study by Rutgers University that say 56% of men who are having affairs say they're happy in their marriages.
Really?
It says they're largely satisfied and are not looking for a way out, but they find themselves in bed with other women because they're lacking something. It says they're still in love with their wives. When they cheat, they tend to cheat with women they know.
Really?
And they cheat to save their marriages. They don't know how to fix their problems. So they go to fill a hole, it says.
So do you think that if they could just communicate what they saw as the problems in the relationship, people would not resort to cheating? Is that what we are to take from this?
Absolutely. I think communication is huge. The thing that got me that I kind of figured it, but it's I was surprised to see it writing, I guess, that when women cheat, and they cheat almost as much as men, their affairs are more dangerous.
Really?
The statistic said that men won't forgive women, where women will forgive men more. And it was, Indiana University said that when a woman cheats, they cheat more for emotional satisfaction and do it more online with no physical contact.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I do also more for physical contact and less for emotional reasons.
Okay.
And I do also would like to add and say that if someone is in a relationship where they have been cheated on numerous times, or they are the abuser and they're cheating on their partner, and they need to heal themselves from whatever caused them to do what they did, because they carry baggage from one relationship to the next, and that can be very dangerous.
17% did it with a brother or sister-in-law.
What?
17%.
17%, that's very high.
So
The average length of the affair was 2 years. I wouldn't think it would be that long either.
wow.
And
Wow.
let's see, after it's been admitted or discovered, 31% continue the marriage. So that's pretty simple.
Interesting.
Whereas, and also 74% of men said they would definitely do it if never getting caught, and 68% of women.
It's very interesting.
And the thing is, men who've strayed admitted to being willing to do it again was, out of the 57% that admitted they had done it, was 48% said they would do it again.
It's interesting because, I would ask you, what do these statistics say to you, Poppy? Because to me, they say that monogamy is not for everyone, and that a lot of this conflict and pain and backstabbing could have been solved if one of the members of the couple simply expressed that maybe he had desires that were outside of the relationship and see if they could hash out some agreement.
Or she,
yeah.
What if there's a lack of communication, or a lack of a lot of things, of stimulation, of communication, all of that. I really think that, and it's not only that, if you look not just at those numbers, but the numbers of people who have been divorced or remarried.
Yes.
Marriage is not what it was, 20, 30, even 50 years ago. It's nothing like it was 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. There is no stigma to divorce anymore, where there used to be quite a stigma to it. Mm-hmm. Now it's almost common, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're having divorce parties. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Divorce party?
God knows I did. It was the best thing but I also got married very, very young.
Yeah.
Very young. And I did it for all the wrong reasons. I did it as a rebellious event to my family. Granted, I thought I was in love. Absolutely, I thought I was in love. But it was also an act of rebellion. I could have just lived with him and all that. They got married in traditional.
They were doing what was expected of them at the time. Marriage was compulsory.
What I'm saying is they are still married. Friends, father met her mother, okay?
Okay.
2 days later, they got married because he was shipping out to Vietnam.
Oh, boy.
They're still married.
Wow.
And have a wonderful, strong relationship.
Yeah.
Now, that is absolutely the end of the spectrum that you don't find. That's people don't normally know each other for 2 days, get married, and stay that way and stay happy.
I think a lot, if I may be able to dispense my position a little bit on this. Again, you know what, this is just conjecture, and it's just my opinion again, but I think that, it was worse in a time previous, it was worse in, say, the 50s than it is now. But at the same time, I think part of the reason we still see so much divorce is that people think that they only have the option of monogamous relationship ending in marriage. So nobody really stopped, if you're kind of a conformist that does what you're expected to do, you don't really stop and think, is this really the type of relationship configuration that I am meant to have? And you know what? Relationships, not all relationships are meant to last your entire life. So people go into these relationships with such unrealistic expectations that are not based from reality or even their desire, but it's based from an ideal. And then that ends up damaging everyone involved. If you're holding your relationship to an ideal, that hurts.
Right.
So many people can't measure up.
And everyone wants a happy ever after. You meet your Prince Charming and all of a sudden everything's happy. And I don't think people realize how much work a marriage is.
But I also think that, I think everyone, I'm not saying people can't have their happy ever after, but you know what? People have to realize you can have it. But your happy ever after is not going to look like maybe what society tells you it's going to look like. And you have to come to peace with that. It's a part of growing up. Why is the attainment of a married status so important to so many people?
Well, in America, part of it is money. They get a huge tax break for being married.
Yeah, that's true.
You get a rather large tax break for it.
Indeed.
So it's worth more. And your insurance, your health care benefits, and... Exactly.
And you get lots of gifts.
I have a partner. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Because I'm not married and I have a partner, we don't get each other's benefits.
Yes.
And that's why if we were married, we were marriages, and that's why some people don't divorce because they have so much at stake.
Yes.
Yeah, I
That
have
is
a
true.
daughter after the marriage.
Yeah.
I have a friend like that. She's an American. She's not an American citizen. She never did. She's a permanent resident, green card, all that. Has been here since she was, I think, 12.
Yeah.
Whatever. She's been here forever. And she's married. And because of religious considerations, as well as that status, she is not getting a divorce, although she's lived separate from her husband for, I think, 7-8 years now, and they have a daughter, and, you know, she kept the last name. She's not changed her name because of the daughter. She, you know, well, and again, this is my personal thing. I think marriage should be between you and your God, or gods, as the case is.
Yes.
I don't think it should have anything to do with the government.
I agree. I totally agree.
That's my personal, you know, whatever.
Well, so we are nearing the 2-hour mark, so we got to wrap it up. So I would ask you guys, do you have any more comments on these statistics or any thoughts that this inspires in marriage, monogamy, etc.?
Well, personally, I think that my little final thought is seeing how rampant cheating is. I think more people should consider looking into, you know, swing lifestyle and
Or polyamorous
considering, even if
relationships.
you're not in the room, whatever, talk to your partner, talk with your partner,
Yes.
not to your partner, talk with your partner.
Yes.
And see if it's really about the sex and the variety and blah, blah. You know, consider having something that's more open, either in the same room, in another room, you know, however you want to do it between you and them. But rather than being the sneaky and lying, don't cheat. Be open about it.
Be
Have that
honest.
communication
Yeah.
and such. But with the lifestyle, for example, with the you know, swingers, whatever you want to call it, it's designed for women. Actually, the women are the ones who run it. You know, women set the boundaries. No, they really are. They're the ones who are idiots. I can see that. But it's just 1 in 75 people.
Okay.
Wow. So
Okay.
just be aware that it's not as out there as, you know, you might think. And, you know, rather than cheat, look at it as an alternative.
I agree. Glitter, any last thoughts on this?
Most of all, whatever decision we make in this lifetime, we have to, as an individual, at peace
Yes.
when we make the decision.
Yes.
And there's a song that decision. Absolutely. Yes. And there's a song by a group that was out in the 70s by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes called Wake Up Everybody.
Yes.
And in the song it said, wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way.
Yes.
Maybe they will listen to what you have to say, because they are the ones who's coming up and the world is in their hands.
Thank you very, very much, both of you, for coming on to the show today. That was Glitter, my good friend from a student from Morgan State University, and first-timer, Poppy M. Thank you, both of you guys, for coming on the show today.
I think we need to talk more about it. Sex is great. We need to do more of it.
This could go on and on. But Glitter, if people have questions that they want to be directed to you or to start a correspondence, how can they reach you?
They can reach me by email, wr.glitter@yahoo.com.
Wonderful. And Poppy?
Just reach me through you. I'm in the process of moving right now.
Okay.
So it's best to just get me through you.
That's fine. Well, I had a blast today. It was one of the most interesting conversations I've had on this program. I want to sincerely thank both of you guys for coming on. I know this is a controversial topic, but we handled it fairly well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You also.
Oh,
Now
Poppy.
it's off his head. Yeah, it's Poppy. I'm like, who's turning?
No, Poppy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's all right, love. I'm happy. You got a lot on your plate.
With the porn professor and everything.
Okay. What a porn professor. Interesting character this man is.
This is like Hannity-style explosive.